Feeling down about the state of the world from bushfires to coronavirus? Well, today's guest is on a mission to top up your hope budget with good news.
From Blue Tribe Media, this is the Good Business Podcast, the show where we talk to business leaders, social entrepreneurs and innovators about aligning profit with purpose and how you can make doing good, good for business. Now here's your host, James McGregor.
So in today's episode of the Good Business Podcast, I'm talking with Kimberly White, who's the founder and CEO of the Planetary Press. The last time I spoke to Kimberly was a little over a year ago, and she'd just launched the Planetary Press, so I thought I'd check in to see how it was going, what lessons she's learnt along the way, and her hopes for the future. The Planetary Press is an international news source focused on reporting sustainability, environmental advocacy, corporate social responsibility, and climate change. They highlight sustainable solutions around the globe that inspire others to make a measurable difference. In this episode, Kimberly and I discuss her background growing up in Alaska and Florida and her love of nature, how she is trying to reshape online media by focusing on good news stories, the challenges she is facing in creating a new online news service, and how she wants to be part of everybody's hope budget. And Steve Irwin also gets a mention. So how about we kick off? So people who don't know who you are, why don't we start with you introducing yourself and tell everyone who you are.
All right. My name is Kimberly White. I am the founder and CEO of the Planetary Press. I work internationally with individuals, businesses, NGOs, and governments on having a positive impact on the planet through sustainability.
Awesome. Obviously a well-practiced elevator pitch there. So what's something that you think most people wouldn't know about you?
Well, that's kind of a tough one, but I guess one thing is I'm currently working on a book on conscious consumerism. That's probably one thing people don't know about me.
Can you give us a sneak peek about what that's about?
Yeah, so human activity has fundamentally altered the planet. Globally, ecosystems are facing dramatic changes due to human impacts, and our rampant consumerism has led to increased deforestation, water pollution, unfair working conditions, and the extinction of flora and fauna. In the United States, which is where I'm based, consumerism is a way of life. From plastic water bottles to ingredients lists full of palm oil, the negative impacts of the U.S. consumerism alone transcends borders and reaches around the globe. So with my book, I want people to be uncomfortable because change happens when you're uncomfortable. It doesn't come from from complacency, because complacency is what got us in this mess in the first place. So I really want people to walk away from that book knowing that while these are massive problems that we can't fix alone, they are problems that we can choose not to support. And consumers control the demand. And if enough consumers come together and choose not to support something, the industry then has to respond and change so they continue on with their business. So really empowering consumers to make a change.
Awesome. And have you got a timeline for when you're planning on releasing? I won't hold you to it.
No, not yet. Still in the works.
Okay. Work in progress. Cool. And what would you say your superpower is?
People have called me the connector. I absolutely love networking. So bringing people together to foster change and innovation and sustainability is kind of one of my favorite things to do. So if I think two people would work well together, I will absolutely throw them together.
So now, last time we spoke was a little over, actually it was probably on a year ago now, and you just launched your new venture, the Planetary Press. So tell us a little bit about that. What is the Planetary Press? What does it do?
Gladly. The Planetary Press is an online news source focused on sustainability, environmental advocacy, corporate social responsibility, and climate change. We feature sustainable solutions from around the globe that inspire others to make a measurable difference. At the Planetary Press, we highlight the work organizations, cities, governments, companies, and individuals are doing to promote sustainability and the impacts they are having on both a local and global scale.
So now I want to go back a little bit in time. So, going through your bio, you obviously got a very strong passion for making the world a better place. I'm interested in your background about where does this passion come from?
Well, I think I've always had this passion. I was fortunate to live in two beautifully biodiverse places, Alaska and Florida, as a child, which gave me a really strong love of nature. Originally, when I started out, I wanted to save the animals, but then I realized I could have a bigger impact on wildlife by transforming business as usual, which has now turned into something much bigger with the Planetary Press.
And was there a particular moment or event that you can remember which you think triggered that interest?
I've always been interested in wildlife and nature since I was a kid, so I can't pinpoint one particular moment, but I was always bringing home some type of stray animal, much to my parents' dismay. So I spent when I was a teenager, I spent time at a nature camp where I taught kids about how to really get in touch with like their local wildlife and their nature and what's around them, and to really take care of it and to care for it.
And so with the Planetary Press, can you take us back to that moment when you decided that's what you're going to do? So this is before you've launched. What were we doing? Where we get? What was going on that made you decide I'm going to start an online news service?
Well, it's kind of an interesting way it came about. It's something I've always wanted to do since I was a camp counselor at a nature park. However, the idea evolved beyond like nature and wildlife through my experiences working with business, city, and national sustainability initiatives. And especially recently, news organizations always seem to focus on the negative and the doom and gloom, whereas solutions and projects working to make a positive impact don't receive the attention deserved or needed. Former U.S. Vice President Al Gore has said, while people need to know the facts, there also needs to be a hope budget, which I really identified with. So with the Planetary Press, I set out with the goal that we would be part of people's hope budgets and hopefully empower them to set out to make a difference in their local communities and ultimately our global community, because at the end of the day, we're all connected.
Yeah, so I like that term, hope budget. But just from a business point of view, I mean, the media outlets focus on doom and gloom because it seems to sell the news. How have you tried to flip that on its head around? You've still got you're providing basically an online media service. You still got to bring traffic. You still get people coming to the site, presumably generate revenue. We'll get to that in a moment. How have you dealt with that? What are you doing differently, do you think, that's bringing traffic to or bringing exposure to the sort of stories that you want to cover?
Well, I think one thing that we do differently is we're not focused on one specific region. We are truly global. So we try to pull stories from everyone, whether it be the sustainability director at a large company or a city or an individual activist who is, on the front lines of a movement. So we really want to make sure everybody's story is told. And through that, I feel like we reach more people. So social media has been a big thing for us. And also, one thing I have realized is people love statistics. So if you can tell them how many, plastic bottles, I'll say Americans use per hour versus, versus like a global scale, it does get the clicks. People are interested in learning more about what's going on with that. Or if a city is banning something, like if they are banning plastic bags or they are moving away towards like the illegal wildlife trade, which we just saw at the time of recording that this morning, the Chinese government is now starting to move away from the illegal wildlife trade, and there's talk of it being banned permanently. And right now, due to the coronavirus, there is a temporary ban placed. So it's things like that. It's making sure that we're conveying the seriousness and the sense of urgency we need to have to act, and making sure we have a place for everybody.
Yeah. So who's the audience for the Planetary Press?
Our audience is everybody. We want to reach everyone from that sustainability director to the activists. That's what we set out to do. Is we want to be a media source where everybody can come and walk away with something new, or walk away with hope, or walk away with, hey, I didn't know this organization existed. Now I want to go help support them how I can.
So tell us a little bit about the, how do you keep the lights on? You're running a media outlet effectively, but you still need, to keep the lights on to be able to deliver your impact. How does a business model work for the Planetary Press?
For the Planetary Press, the business model, we are still in the beginning stages. So we haven't quite figured out everything just yet. It's a lot of learning on the go. Ad revenue has been helpful. And also we do have people who have been interested in donating to us as well. So it's been that. And a lot of my own personal funds have gone into it. So, within this first year, we are really still working on it. Our first focus has been making an impact, and then the second focus has been making the income. But we have been able to keep the lights on, thankfully, to a lot of people who believe in the cause. Yeah,
because traditionally, I think media has lived off the back of advertising revenue. Are you looking at partnering with, obviously with your audience, I would say, or are they converted in many ways? Are people who are working in the sustainability space or interested in this topic already? And so you're effectively building a movement and a tribe. Are you working with brands that are aligned with that mission to get to that audience and bring everyone with them?
Yeah, we have worked with certain brands. But a lot of it actually comes down to individuals and even some NGOs who really want to see this move forward. And Google AdSense has also been a really great one for us. The one thing that, we've maintained is important is we always want to make sure that our ads are representative of what we believe in as well. So, we don't want to advertise fossil fuels. And that's one thing that's been important.
Maybe take us back a little bit around, I guess launching a brand new enterprise is challenging enough. I mean, what's been one of the hardest things, do you think, you only launched a little over a year ago? I think you just had your first anniversary. What's been one of the toughest challenges that you've had to deal with?
Well, with media, it's always, finding how to convey your message. So for us, finding the right language to convey the seriousness and sense of urgency we need to have with the climate crisis, for example, to everyone, especially those climate deniers, and also keeping everything nonpartisan, because we do need everyone. The climate crisis is and will continue to impact everyone everywhere, regardless of their political affiliations. So it's the biggest challenge for us has been really focusing on policies and solutions, not the politicians, and making sure we're inclusive of everybody. We really want to identify the things that bring people together, not tear them apart, because there's enough of that going on right now.
Yeah, I was just about to ask, how, I guess, particularly in the US, there's partisan politics and what's going on there. I mean, how do you get cut through given that, it's 24/7, wall to wall, Democrats versus Republicans, environmentalists versus fossil fuel? And how do you get cut through in that sort of environment?
Well, that is really difficult because to me, it's frustrating because it should not even be a party issue. It should be something that brings us together, but unfortunately, it has really been politicized. So really, it's identifying things that bring people together because everybody cares about something. And, whether it be, the financial impact or the environmental impact, there's something for everybody to care about an issue. So it's really kind of bringing that to the forefront of it and making everybody realize, hey, this is something that can bring us together rather than tear us apart. And we are seeing a shift in how people are viewing this, especially from the finance industry. We're seeing big commitments out of, giants like Goldman Sachs and even JP Morgan Chase, who has been, more of an environmental offender. They had just recently come out with, the climate crisis is going to be a lot worse than they had originally indicated. So, we're starting to see a shift in realization. So I'm hoping that at least in the US, we're going to be seeing more of that realization that, okay, it's not a political issue. It's a people issue. This is going to affect all of us. So we need to cut the party lines already.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned before, I guess one of the challenges around how to choose the right language to communicate to the audience. What's some of the things that you've learned around, as a writer? I guess crafting words is your craft. What is some of the types? What is some of the sorts of language do you think that's working across those divides?
I would say definitely, even not so much language as it comes down to statistics and like showing the actual science behind it and finding those commonalities, or people will be like, okay, this works for me and it also works for them. That's kind of one of the big things for that. We really keep it fact-based. Is we don't add a lot of opinion in at all. It's really fact-based, fact-forward, and hoping that cuts through the political ties.
Yeah, I think that the point you made earlier around making it about people, how do you find that balance between what's in it for them? Because that still is a basic human driver. And I look at the war on coal. We need to make sure the war on coal is differentiated from the coal communities, because they're two different issues. One's about a particular resource and energy, means of energy production, but those communities still rely on that resource. So you can't have a war on coal and then not have some sort of positive plan for those communities that are involved. So I think whether you're business to business or business to consumer, everything's people to people, right? So we're all in the P2P
exactly.
business. So.
It's balancing that out, and in those communities where that is the focus is what is next. It's showing that we're not going to, there's this war on coal, but that does not mean we're going to leave these people out of the door. We're going to be having a positive transition moving forward and being very inclusive of everybody. So showing that, there is a plan for that and that it has worked in other places, I think is one of the most important things. And also going back to the language part is showcasing positive examples of where this has worked. I think was one of the best ways to get through is showing, yeah, this worked here, and it can work here. And also identifying those challenges, because people don't just want to hear about the good things. It's also showing them, yes, there are challenges, but you can make it through them.
Yeah, but I think language is actually really, really, really important. I think it's a misunderstood thing. We've been doing a lot of work recently. As you know, actually one of the articles that we that contributed to the Planetary Press was about a new TV show that we're working on, trying to drive the uptake of sustainable housing. And one of the key learnings from that is that specific words, for example, words like green and sustainable and eco, if you're trying to bring a mass market with you, actually are very polarizing. And so you actually need to avoid using those, because as soon as you say that, people then associate with a certain tribe or a certain external reflection of who they see themselves as. So if people who don't see themselves as necessarily environmentalists, if you use the word green or sustainable, they immediately think living in a commune in rammed earth floors with dreadlocks, off grid. But we know the reality is yeah. And so, but we know, for example, the technology, sustainable technology and green buildings, for example, which is sort of my background, is super cool. There's such amazing engineering and technology that goes into them. But words are so powerful that if you use the wrong words, you sort of turn people off.
Exactly. And where I'm based in the state of Florida, the language of climate change was actually banned for a while now. And so we couldn't talk about climate change or the climate crisis. So we really had to frame everything around the terminology of resiliency, building resiliency to these environmental challenges. So it's knowing your audience and realizing, okay, what wording can we use and what can make people excited? The science behind it is exciting.
Yeah, it's some amazing stuff going on. So we talked earlier about you trying to run with this good news story, but I guess recently here in Australia with the bushfires that we had here, the sort of unprecedented fires around the country, which the climate change is for sure a contributor to that. That's really shocked, I think, the community into seeing what does this future look like in reality, which is actually quite a negative thing. In terms of what occurred was negative, but that's how you cut through. I mean, how do you find a balance for something? Talking about that sort of event, for example, on not sounding alarmist and sort of again polarizing people to sort of communicate those sorts of issues.
Again, it really comes down to the facts and carefully choosing whether we talk about whether it be climate crisis or climate emergency. So we might say climate change in order to, not sound alarmist. And what we also focus on is what has happened over the past 100 years. And you can really show those temperature differences and the differences in these natural disasters and what's going on. And conveying that also paired with that language really does make that impact. And highlighting, again, those organizations, those amazing firefighters, everybody who really stepped up in the face of this, and those who are coming together. I know we saw a lot of horror stories really coming out of Australia with the fires, but I think what's also been so wonderful is we've also seen a lot of people come together to really make that change. We've seen celebrities go through and try to raise funds. We've seen a lot of action from Australia Zoo, who saved, oh my gosh, what was it, 90,000 animals from the fires. So it's just really showcasing all sides of it. And then at the end of it, that person's going to make their decision on whether, they believe it or they don't. But at the end of the day, I hope we really do at least leave it in their mind to where they think about it.
So what's next? So if you could cast your eye to the future for Planetary Press, so what's next? Where do you see it going in the future?
Well, there's a lot of things that we would like to continue with. I do see us expanding more. Currently, our audience is in more than 170 countries. So I would eventually like to get all of those on our list. That would be wonderful. I would also like for us to incorporate, I would say, more business stories as well, more positive stories coming out of business, especially building in their resiliency plans. And also I would like to, we are planning on doing a couple of leadership series. So that was definitely something for people to keep an eye out on. That'll be launching later this year.
Great, sounds good. It'll let us know about that, and we'll promote that out through our channels as well. So if you could go back a year, obviously you've just gone through your first anniversary, what would you do differently?
I don't think I'd do anything differently. The whole part of it has been a journey where it's, you learn through those messy details. So for me, I wouldn't change anything. I would just keep moving forward. And we've made some really great partnerships with some organizations like See Women based out of Colombia and WADSOM, the first woman-owned business news organization in Afghanistan. And it's just, we've built these great relationships and we've learned along the way. So I wouldn't change anything.
Great. So for someone who is out there listening right now and they've grown up with a love of nature and they've suddenly decided they're going to launch a new enterprise to sort of pursue their passion, what's one piece of advice that you give someone like that?
Go for it. Don't let the fear of failing hold you back. Every great idea, invention, or even movement started from that same spark. And don't be discouraged if it doesn't happen right away. Change takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. So just, keep moving forward and keep yourself inspired and always keep learning. I think that's one of the most important things we can be doing.
Yeah, great. That's a really common piece of advice. Is just go for it. When I started my business, I literally just quit my job and had no plan. Just literally went out there and had to go. And you'd be amazed if you've got that mission focus, what opportunities. So actually, one of our previous guests, if you've got a clear mission, doors will always open for you, I think, in this space. So I think that's good advice. So if people wanted to get in touch with you or learn more about the Planetary Press, what's the best way for them to connect?
They can visit us at our website, www.theplanetarypress.com, or on Twitter at Planetary Press. They can also reach us via email, which the email is on our website.
Great, no worries. And if people have got stories, what's the best way for them to sort of let you know about good news stories that might be suitable for Planetary Press?
Definitely send us an email. You can reach me at editor@theplanetarypress.com, or if you're on social media, you can direct message us on Twitter or tag us in something even. We've had some great organizations tag us in their posts, and some stories have come about that way as well.
Great, awesome. All right, so let's wrap it up with what we call our Mad Minute. So it's 5 rapid-fire questions. The goal is 60 seconds, but we'll see how we go. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
The best piece of advice came from my mom. She always told me, don't be afraid of hearing the word no. And if you believe in what you're doing, don't give up.
Yeah, great advice. Mums always know best.
Yeah.
What's your favorite business book?
Right now, it's The $1 Trillion Shift by Marga Hoek.
And soon to be conscious consumerism. Is that going to be the title of the upcoming book?
No, it's not going to be the title. I still have that under wraps, but you'll be one of the first to know.
Great. All right. So when you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Steve Irwin.
Really?
Yes, I was a huge Steve Irwin fan, and I desperately wanted to be a herpetologist when I grew up and work with alligators and crocodiles and snakes. It was just so inspiring to me. So I watched every episode. I was a huge fan. Still am.
So what's a herpetologist?
A herpetologist works with reptiles and amphibians. So it's a biologist just with that specialty.
There we go. A new word for my vocabulary today. What's your favorite quote?
My favorite quote is definitely by Jane Goodall, and we actually have this up on our site. It is, "You cannot get through a single day without having an impact on the world around you. What you do makes a difference, and you have to decide what kind of difference you want to make."
Like it. Good one. And if you go back in time and give your 20-year-old self some advice, what would it be?
No guarantees my 20-year-old self would listen, but it would be relax, live in the moment more, and don't get so caught up in the details of the future that you lose out on your present. You don't get those moments back.
Awesome. And even if your 20-year-old self wouldn't listen, that's probably some sage advice for them. So, look, thank you for your time. It's been great chatting with you 12 months on since we last spoke, just after you launched. Certainly encourage people to go and check out the Planetary Press. There's lots of really great stories on there. And if you're looking for your daily dose of hope to fill up your hope bucket, make sure you go and check it out. So thanks for joining us on the Good Business Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I hope your hope budget was topped up a little from today's episode, and if it wasn't, make sure you go and check out the Planetary Press. Today's episode was all about communicating and storytelling, so make sure you check out our free ebook on selling sustainability that'll help you communicate and get people to buy into your big idea. You can get the ebook and the show notes by visiting www.bluetribe.co/podcast. Coming up in the next episode.
It's not like you can rent a co-working space with a chocolate kitchen in the back, right? That just doesn't exist.
In the next episode, I'm going to show you how you can eat more chocolate and make the world a better place. Even Willy Wonka would be excited about this one. That's it for another episode of the Good Business Podcast. I'm James McGregor. Until next time.